And the Oscar goes to Clint Eastwood for Unforgiven.
Picture this. It's the spring of 1993, and the lobby of the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills is buzzing louder than a movie premiere after-party. Producers in crisp Armani suits are air-kissing their way across the room. Oscar winners are sipping aged whiskey like it's just lemonade at a summer BBQ. And right there, near the grand piano that hasn't seen a real tune since Sinatra's heyday, stands Clint Eastwood. Stoic, silent, and very much not blending in. He's not holding court, he's holding judgment. Now, here's where it gets juicy. Across the room, this up-and-coming actor is putting on a little show. He's name-dropping, cracking jokes, and suddenly, he launches into a cheap Clint Eastwood impression. You know the kind: gravelly voice, squinty eyes, maybe a "go ahead, make my day" thrown in for good measure. Everyone laughs, except Clint. He doesn't flinch, he doesn't blink. He finishes his drink, nods at the bartender, and walks out. No eye contact, no scene, just the kind of exit that screams, "You messed up, buddy." That moment, it became Hollywood legend. Whispers flew, casting lists shifted, and the actor who dared to mock him? He was never quite the same again. All right, let's talk about Clint Eastwood's philosophy. Because this man isn't just a movie icon, he's practically a walking, talking life lesson in cowboy boots. But here's the twist. He doesn't actually do a whole lot of talking. That's kind of the whole point. Clint's not the kind of guy who'll throw shade on Twitter or clap back in interviews. No. His style is more like watch, learn, and disappear you from the casting call if you cross the line. At the heart of it all is this old-school code, a personal rule book that feels like it was written on the back of a leather saddle in the desert sun. Respect, loyalty, and discipline. Those are the big three. He's not trying to be your best friend on set. He's not cracking jokes at lunch. But if you show up on time, know your lines, and don't act like a diva, he'll have your back. Cross him, though, and you won't even get a warning. Just silence. Cold, career-killing silence. What makes it even more fascinating is that this quiet approach somehow speaks louder than the loudest Hollywood meltdown. Clint doesn't need drama. His silence is the drama. Michael Moore versus Clint Eastwood. When the rebel poked the cowboy. Okay, so let's set the stage. It's the early 2000s, and Michael Moore is riding high on the wave of political documentaries. He's loud, he's brash, and he's not afraid to call out anyone, from presidents to pop culture icons. But here's the thing about Clint Eastwood. He's not a man who likes to be called out, especially not by someone with a camera and a megaphone. The tension between these two didn't explode in some headline-grabbing showdown, but it brewed quietly, like coffee left too long on the burner. It all started when Moore publicly criticized Eastwood's stance on gun rights. This wasn't just a casual disagreement. It was a full-on ideological face-off. Moore's sharp tongue met Clint's steel-eyed silence. And guess what? Clint didn't clap back. He didn't rant or roll his eyes in public. Instead, he did what Clint does best. He vanished Moore from his world. No collaborations, no friendly red carpet nods. Nothing. For Moore, this was probably just another bold statement. But for Eastwood, it was personal. The cowboy code had been breached. And once you cross that invisible line with Clint, there's no dramatic confrontation, just an icy, career-long freeze-out. And that's even scarier than a Hollywood feud with fireworks. Clint Eastwood and Spike Lee, a standoff at the crossroads of Hollywood and history. Now, here's a showdown straight out of a Western, except this one took place not in dusty saloons, but on press junkets and public stages. When you put Clint Eastwood and Spike Lee in the same Hollywood ecosystem, you're bound to get sparks. These are two legendary directors, two massive egos, and two very different visions of America. And let's just say, they did not ride off into the sunset together. The tension really bubbled up around the time Eastwood released his back-to-back war epics in the mid-2000s. Spike Lee called him out publicly for the lack of black soldiers shown in the films. That criticism hit Clint hard, not because it was loud, but because it questioned his sense of history and storytelling. And if there's one thing Eastwood guards as fiercely as his privacy, it's his creative choices. Clint didn't respond with fire. Nope. He did what he always does. He kept it cool, but you could feel the chill. Their exchange was short, pointed, and ended with Eastwood famously telling Spike to shut his face. Not exactly poetry, but definitely iconic. From that point forward, the Cold War between them was on. And just like that, Spike Lee earned himself a spot on Clint's quiet blacklist. When Leo met Clint, stardom, tension, and a muffled Hollywood fallout. All right, so imagine this. Hollywood royalty meets Hollywood legend. On one side, you've got Leonardo DiCaprio, the golden boy with a jawline sculpted by the gods, and a resume that's practically a museum of Oscar bait. On the other, Clint Eastwood, the rugged filmmaker who doesn't smile unless someone's won a war or tamed a wild horse. You'd think it would be a match made in movie heaven when they teamed up for J. Edgar back in the year 2011. But oh no, this story didn't end with standing ovations and buddy-buddy interviews. It ended with, well, nothing. And that's exactly the problem. From the outside, everything looked smooth. But insiders whisper that Clint found Leo a little too method, a little too meticulous, and maybe, just maybe, a little too Hollywood. Clint's style is old school, one take and move on. Leo, he likes to explore every emotional crevice of a character. That difference in approach reportedly caused some quiet clashes on set. They never feuded publicly. No Twitter rants, no spilled tea on late-night shows. But what we didn't see after J. Edgar spoke volumes, no reunion, no second collaboration, no love lost, just silence. And in Clint Eastwood's world, that's not just a pause, it's a period. Clint Eastwood versus Seth Rogen, the silent snub of Hollywood's odd couple. Okay, now this one's got all the makings of an unlikely Hollywood mismatch. On one side, you've got Seth Rogen, comedic genius, lovable stoner, king of improv, and the guy who could probably make a fart joke sound profound. On the other side, Clint Eastwood, a man so serious, his laugh is rumored to be locked in a vault somewhere under Warner Brothers. These two were never meant to mix. And spoiler alert, they didn't. So, what went wrong? Well, let's rewind to the mid-2010s, when Seth, in his usual jokester style, made a public jab at American Sniper, one of Clint's most personal and polarizing films. He compared it, maybe too casually, to Nazi propaganda. And even though he later clarified that he meant in structure, not in ideology, the damage was done. Clint doesn't do sarcasm. He doesn't do backpedaling either. What he does do? Quiet erasure. After that comment, Seth Rogen's name may as well have been written in disappearing ink on Clint's Hollywood Rolodex. There were no direct confrontations, no sassy tweets, no awkward run-ins at award shows. Just nothing. In Eastwood's world, a joke at the wrong moment isn't just a misstep. It's an unforgivable crack in the code. And that's something he never forgets. The gunsmoke and the silence. Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman's quiet fallout. Now this one hurts a little because it started as a bromance born on the battlefield of cinema. When Clint Eastwood cast Gene Hackman in Unforgiven, His gritty, blood-soaked masterpiece from the early 1990s, it felt like a match made in Western heaven. Two legends, two grizzled powerhouses, one unforgettable movie. And to be fair, the result was magic. The film won big at the Oscars, critics raved, and Hackman even took home a golden statue. But behind the scenes? The energy wasn't exactly horse rides and high fives. Sources close to the production say that Gene Hackman, brilliant as he was, had a bit of a temper. He could be intense, confrontational, and sometimes difficult to direct. Clint, ever the quiet commander, reportedly clashed with Hackman over tone, delivery, and control of the set. And while the arguments never went full tabloid, the vibe turned frosty fast. After Unforgiven, you'd think the two would team up again, right? Wrong. No reunion, no follow-up, not even a polite nod in future interviews. Clint never called Gene out publicly, but in Eastwood speak, that absence is the message. When Clint's done with you, it's not with fireworks, it's with silence. And that silence, it's permanent. The legend and his list. Clint Eastwood's final word, without saying a word. So, here we are at the end of the road. Or more like the end of the trail, if we're speaking in Clint Eastwood terms. Over the course of decades, Clint built a career on grit, glare, and gut instinct. And while some stars lash out or light up social media when they've got a grudge, Clint's method is way more old school. He doesn't feud. He fades you out. One moment you're in his circle, and the next, poof. You're out like a dim light in a spaghetti western saloon. What's fascinating about Clint's list, the 5 names he just couldn't forgive, is that none of it ever played out with big headlines or public blow-ups. Each story ends not with a bang, but with a breathtakingly cold silence. No second chances, no sit-down interviews to clear the air. Once you've crossed Clint's line, whether it's creative disrespect, ideological friction, or just a flat-out personality clash, you're done. And he doesn't need to tell the world why. He just moves on, and the industry quietly takes notice. At 94 years old, Clint Eastwood is still the ultimate Hollywood outlaw. No drama, no gossip, just a code, and the power to enforce it without saying a single word. Now that is legendary.